Good morning and welcome to Sound Money Management on Connect FM. I am Jay Philippone, and this is the show where we try to help you be a more informed investor without all the jargon. A lot of shows out there with a lot of talk, and it's hard to
Big
understand what they
words.
say, but not Chuck. Chuck talks in everyday language, and so you can understand what he's talking about when you talk to him in his office. You have a better idea of what he's actually saying.
Yeah, I try to keep it simple.
Yeah, try to keep it simple. So there isn't any one great magic number when you're looking to see what a stock is actually worth. In fact, great investing is about putting together a couple of pieces, several pieces of evidence actually, before making a decision. And today we're going to share 8 financial metrics that many investors use to screen stocks before they ever think about pressing the buy button.
Or calling their broker.
Yes,
Yeah,
which is usually a better idea.
yeah. Sometimes I can talk you out of a bad idea,
Yeah.
right?
Quick reminder before we get started, today's discussion is for educational purposes only. We are not recommending any specific security, and every investment should be evaluated based on your own goals, your risk tolerance, and financial situation. So I've said enough. It's time for Chuck.
All right, thank you, Jay. Yeah, I want to emphasize again that what you said. There is no magic number, and there's probably no magic numbers. No guarantee of success. In other words, um, someone said to me once that investing is like gambling. Yeah, not really. Well, maybe if you're the house. When you're a gambler, you could be on either side of the table, right? And
Right.
obviously, there's that old saying, "The house always wins," because the odds are on the house's side. And that's what you want to do with investing. You want to put the odds of success on your side. Obviously, if you're the house, the gambler's going to win sometime. In fact, you may get somebody that comes in there and gets on a streak and they're bleeding you. The house is just losing money. That's usually when they send, the big bouncer, tough looking guy
Yeah.
and suggest that maybe it's time for you to go have a drink or get dinner or something, right? But generally the house always wins. That's how come their big, beautiful buildings and, all the lavish entertainment. Now, you think that comes because they're losing? No, of course not. So you want to be the house. And these 8 metrics can help you be the house. Again, no guarantee of success, but they can be helpful. So the first one that we're going to look at is the first set rather refer to a company's growth and quality. So revenue growth is a big one, and it's revenue is just what it is. It's what it sounds like. It's the money a company brings in from selling its widgets
Hmm.
or its widgets advice, so products and services, right? That's the money the company brings in. It's before profits, before dividends, uh, before the stock price. You got to have revenue. So think of it like owning a restaurant. If more
Hmm.
customers are walking through the door every year, that's a healthy sign. Right?
Yes.
You get more. So more revenue is a healthy sign. A useful screening range for not all, many. And I want to emphasize this too. Industries are different. And so this is a good way to compare apples to apples, but maybe not
Hmm.
apples to oranges. So if you're looking at um, let's say, a real estate investment company versus numbers aren't the same.
No.
Find another company like if you want to invest in the side of the stock market, find other companies that are similar, and then you run these numbers and see which one makes the most sense. So be careful you don't compare, across industries or across sectors. But generally, a lot of companies, when you're looking at revenue uh, growth, 5 to 15% annual revenue growth is generally considered a good, healthy range. It's a range. Uh, so that's the first thing that you want to look at. Does the company have strong and growing revenues? And faster growing industries may post higher numbers. Mature businesses might grow more slowly, but doesn't make them bad. Look for other mature businesses, and again, it's a way to evaluate within the same sector. So
So, quick question,
yeah,
Chuck. You're looking at, say, a newer company. What's more important? They don't really have a lot of profit, but revenue is skyrocketing. What does that tell you?
it tells you they're on the right track.
Okay.
Okay. We're going to get into some other metrics. One of the ones that we're going to look at is debt.
Okay.
So yeah, the revenue is growing, but is it growing faster than their debt?
Good
So
question.
that is a great question. And then you want to look at the source of the revenue. So there's other things that come into really tough to evaluate a new company coming in and just starting out, right? Again, if you're going to use these metrics that we're going to talk about, you want to make sure you're comparing apples to apples,
Right.
right? And that will help keep you out of trouble. Um, yeah, revenue growth is extremely important. It'd be worse if you had a new company that was burning cash and not generating revenue yet.
Yeah.
Right? That would be a bad thing. So revenue growth, again, it's a guideline. It's the first one. It is an important one. But here's one thing that's more important than the number of whatever the percentage is.
Hmm.
Is it consistent? Is there a track record of revenue growth? So, for example, a company that grows revenue 8% every year for 5 years might be stronger than one that jumps 30% for 1 year and then declines the next. So, it's an uneven revenue stream. So again, it's a tool to evaluate. And here's another thing. I don't know if we're going to get through all 8 today, Jay, because this is important.
That's all right. Then you
Might
got next week's shows
Yeah, it
already
might be
done.
2 shows. We'll see.
Yeah.
Um, uh, see, I lost my train of thought there. So
Sound like
to
me.
get back to the 8% for 5 years, be stronger than the one that jumps 30% 1 year. You want to know, is it growing consistently? That's the key. Is it
Hmm.
growing consistently? So, again, revenue is extremely important. It's the first thing you want to look at in our list of 8. The next thing you want to look at, earnings per share, or EPS. And you hear this number thrown around a lot. They talk about, well, what's the average? What's the EPS on the S&P 500 as an average? And it's a way to measure. One of the things they look at is the market overvalued not the market? Well, yeah, the market too, but individual securities that overvalued or undervalued compared to its industry. Again, a lot of people want to use the average market number. Uh, that's not really relevant, because if you're in a fast growing industry and the earnings are accelerating, actual earnings, not just revenue, but earnings, that's a really good sign. And are people willing to pay more for
Hmm.
the earnings of that business? For what reason? That's really what earnings per share tells you. Eventually, we talk about revenue. Revenue is great. Eventually, it has to translate into profit. So earnings per share measures how much profit is
Hmm.
allocated to each share of stock. That's important. So if revenue is the size of the pie, EPS, earnings per share, tells shareholders whether their slice is getting bigger, right? It's the
Hmm.
earnings
Okay.
per share. A strong screen for stocks based on earnings per share is often 10% or more annual growth. So if it's growing 10% or more earnings per share, that's a really good candidate for uh, for many investors, especially if it's doing it over several years. Again, 1 or 2 years, not really a trend. If you get a trend, that can be really important. And then remember, what we're talking about today is long-term buy and hold investing. Chuck,
Did you say that?
yeah, I know. I'm the buy and hope guy. See, there's a difference. There's a difference. Um, Warren Buffett is said to be one of the greatest buy and hold investors, right? But he sells stocks.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
he's a great seller of stocks. Sometimes when he feels that it's run its course, he'll sell for nice profit, and sometimes he'll admit that he's made a mistake and he'll sell a loser.
And then sometimes he'll just trim what he owns. Like if he's got 1 billion shares, he only might sell 100 million.
So yeah, is that really buy and hold? Buy and
True.
hope investor to me is someone who, for example, if you have a 401k from a previous employer,
Hmm.
and if you're one of the very few who even know what your 401k is invested in, right? There aren't many people that know. They'll come in the office. So where's your 401k allocated? I just did what they told me. Well, first of all, they didn't tell you. They're not allowed to tell you what to do. They might have given you a book and said, "Here's your options." Um, Sometimes you can call the 401k company and they might give you guidance in that they'll describe the different risk tolerances, but they're really not allowed to tell you where your investment should go. And most people don't know. But a buy and hoper to me is someone who comes in, you don't know what you own, you don't know where it's at,
Right.
or your portfolio is 30 years old and you've never trimmed anything. In my line of investors, Jay, you are the guru of buy and hold. You have a
No, wait a second. We
now,
sell.
huh?
We sell.
That's where I'm going with this. You have a portfolio position. Some you've owned for 20
Long time.
years.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
some yeah, exactly though. You buy a good portion of your portfolio is those stodgy old doggone growth companies that just pay dividends. What's wrong with you?
I know. I just want to get paid while
You
I
just
own
want
the
to get
stock.
paid for it. Yeah.
I don't want to wait to sell it.
So that's what we're talking about here. There are faster forms of trading that try to generate higher returns and probably not looking at all these metrics the same way. So we're talking about uh, buy and hold, trying to build a quality portfolio for the long term. Now we mentioned about how earnings per share uh, comes in. So the company has revenue, but after um, they pay the expenses and the dividends and all that. Everything that comes out, right?
Hmm.
What does the shareholder get? There's a red flag that I want to mention here. Sometimes earnings simply rise because a company buys back its own shares. So remember, we use the pie analogy, right?
Hmm.
So if every investor has a slice of the pie, then and the earnings come in, what if you reduce the number of slices? So if
Then the earnings per share goes up,
go
right?
up, but did the company actually make more money? No, it
No.
didn't. No, it didn't. So this is again, we said about you can't just look at one number. Uh, numbers can lie, right? So the other metrics come into play to help make sure that everybody's telling the truth, right? So and I did a series of shows on this several years ago. See, some CEO bonuses are based on earnings per share,
Mhm.
and they
Do
would
they
take.
then buy the stock back and get a bigger
There were
bonus?
companies that were borrowing money to buy back shares
Oh,
to get the earnings per share up.
that doesn't sound right.
It's shady. I think it's shady.
I would agree with you
Shady,
there.
yeah. Now the excuse was, oh, it's cheaper for us to pay the interest on the loan than it is to pay the dividends on the stock.
Hmm.
You're still cheating.
Yeah.
You're still cheating. Anyway, red flag there again. Another reason why you can't just uh, rely on one number alone. So take your EPS and compare it alongside revenue growth. Healthy companies are going to grow both of them together. So the next metric, and I'm putting them in an order, but there really is no particular order. What is important, but return on equity is one thing we want to look at. So return on equity, or ROE, measures how effectively management uses shareholders' money to generate profits. So we've got two companies, Company A, Company B. Company A earns $80,000. Uh, they have $1 million that they start with, right? And on their
Okay.
$1 million, Company A earns 80,000. Company B earns 180,000. Company B is producing more profit from the same investment. That's a higher return on equity. So again, a number that you can use for screening purposes, and again, it's industry and sector specific. It's just to compare companies together. 15% ROE is often considered healthy. Again, the ideal number will vary by industry, but that's a good starting point for someone. One caution: extremely high return on equity can sometimes be caused by excessive debt.
Oh.
So companies again take on debt. You know how I feel about debt,
Oh,
Jay.
I know very very
Debt
well.
generally not a good thing. Not always bad. Not always. I borrowed money to buy my house.
Uh-huh.
Better than living in my car, so that was a good thing.
Easier to sleep.
Easier to sleep. So sometimes debt is a good thing, but you got to be careful. I consider it the nuclear option. If you have to borrow because things are imploding, then okay, you have to borrow. But generally, you want to avoid it. But excessively high debt can elevate return on equity. So again, we have a metric for that. What time are we at here? Let's take a quick break here, Jay. And I'm not going to get through everything, so I guess there'll be a show two on this.
All right.
Don't go away. We're right back.